It'd be great to have a debate with him with his voice. He can, yeah, right. That's right. He could do that, couldn't he? And we're live, by the way.
Bait.
I didn't plan to.
Baiting going
I can start it over again because I realized I didn't put something in here that I wanted to put in here. But mm, maybe I could still do it. But first, I'll send the stream to some other folks.
on. I am going to aim and I've got big plans. Big plans.
You do,
Yeah.
huh? I see.
I am going to try to color all of this in one sitting.
Wow,
It's
that's a
probably,
challenge, new challenge, huh?
yeah, it's probably not going to be that good, but I'm going to try not to. Well, we'll see. Pick something that's not too intense. Probably not going to happen since I did what I did. My gosh.
Yes.
Mm, I like that too.
Okay, so I've advertised this, and you haven't seen the title yet.
Am I going to?
I hope so. But if you don't, then we'll have a debate on the air. And anyway, but the title is Tiendo Illustrated, a cigar-shaped craft that Oyumama looks like without primitive rock surface.
That's
And it really,
quite the lengthy title.
I know, but it says things I want to say.
Yeah,
And that
there's
was
with the
illustrated.
Atlas thing though too. I'm surprised you didn't put something.
Yeah, I was, but I forgot to do that. I forgot to prepare
Is
that.
that what you
So
wanted to
yeah, at
just to?
first I wanted to do that, and then we realized that there were other things, and we listened to a tape, and then we had some communications with um, um, Call Odie, not Carl Odie.
You had some communications with that individual.
Yes, oh, who just um,
I did not.
and then we're going to talk about um, well, I'll leave the rest a mystery maybe. But Oyumama, that's what I call it, I guess. Uh,
I don't call it anything. I don't know.
is being presented this time. Well, hold here. It's not working right. Whoa, the screen's going bizarre,
I saw it.
and now it's okay.
I saw it. You know the lag is really long. Remember?
Yeah.
So it'll be a bit before that comes up. Hmm.
Okay. Well, I hope it continues to broadcast.
Let me check on the thingy.
We've got 4 people watching, and there's nothing to watch yet, of course, unless you can read the screen. Uh, and I'm kind of hoping a few more folks will come in here that you know, are pretty regularly here.
Yeah, we're still going.
Um, and so I'll start to talk about though that you
I
know
guess I'm just in
the
the
first point on the docket is talking about my rough notes on Kathy and I
That's
listening to
super clear.
audio tape 270. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
great,
All the words are really clear.
good, because I've been trying to get them readable.
Yeah.
Great, that's great that you checked that. Thank you. So this tape 270 270, which we listened to today, was recorded on November 4th, 1987,
Oh, November.
and and it's continuing with the talk about a church strategy and how to relate to the church. And it makes a little bit of mention of singing in church, which didn't sound like Doe was wanting to do that.
But he also talked about how there was something
Something good and unique about
about,
singing in sync with other people
yeah,
and
people lifting up their
the
voices
same tones
and breath
and in breath.
and how the lines all on the same frequency. So he was,
Yes, he was speaking well of the idea of music.
yeah,
He always did, but he wasn't into human music anymore. So, and so music to him was the teachings from that's music to his ears.
that's
The
awesome.
ideas from his older member's mind, the thoughts that his older member would have about anything that his older member does. And, you couldn't have a better example of the one that was here 2,000 years ago, that people, the name Jesus, the name of the vehicle, the body was Jesus. The mind wasn't Jesus. The mind had a different name. I don't know if it was the Archangel Michael, but there's some evidence of that in Revelation 12, where it's talking about T and Do, the woman and the man. Man is the son of the woman, in that the same word that's used. Actually, it's offspring of the woman, and in that the angels, there's a battle. This is the Armageddon battle for souls, and in that battle, it's the dragon who has 7 heads and 10 horns, which are the space alien souls that fell away and went against the next level. So that's Lucifer as the dragon, and and it's depicted as his angels, his workers, his worker bees, his associates would probably be, I think, more the way that T and Do described it, because they're not loyal to him anymore necessarily. And Do talked about that, and you can hear that in an audio tape. But which I'm not going to go into now. But um, so uh, so they were the song. I wanted to get to that because of the Revelation 14 song. Now, and I think that was another pretty accurate chapter. I'm not saying, they're not all accurate because Doe didn't feel like they were all accurate. Um, but T did express that all the events in those um, writings would come to pass. But she wasn't trying to be like specific down to the letter of not knowing exactly how John translated everything. I'm sure she read it probably many number of times. I have no idea because she was a student of all information.
Well, and just her vehicle's history,
Yes,
you
and
know,
right,
being
theosophy,
not theosophy, because that's, I don't think that
Baptist,
exactly, like she
right,
grew up in the church.
right,
Well, I don't know if she grew up in the church. I should not say that at all. But I mean, she grew up as her family was Baptist and they attended the church on, Sundays, and
yeah, I
to all
believe they
intents
did.
and purposes, it seems like she was raised, somewhat like as religiously as Doe had been.
Gosh,
And
I wonder why I didn't.
his
I'm sorry.
father was a preacher.
T's father,
Doe's father.
Noah's father,
So I
right?
was just saying, like, T seems to have been raised in somewhat of a similar environment of a lot of religious,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. That's in fact that's what
upbringing.
Doe said that it was the only thing they had in common.
Is the love of their father, their heavenly
That they
father.
both had love for their heavenly father
Yeah.
when they met because everything else was like, holy smokes. Doe was like, he was challenged by it. It was, it was difficult.
Your older member will challenge you.
Yes. And that's, that's why, this is the truth. We're telling the truth of what was really happening because of listening to the tapes and had firsthand experience for 19 years. And so, this is what you won't hear probably anywhere else much. I mean, maybe you do. I don't know. There are people talking about it, I know, in all
Yeah,
over the
but they
world.
weren't there.
Right. But not that that's needed so much, but the next level would give us what we need, no matter who is
It'd be
here.
like, me talking about being an Olympian and I've never been to the Olympics or trained or anything. Like, I can read and I can study all about the Olympics
Right.
and I can follow all of the characters involved in that event. But I am not going to truly know what it is like and what's going on until I'm there and I'm actually competing as an Olympic athlete.
Right.
You know, I
Right.
can study it all I want. I can make up as many theories as I want. I can suppose as many things as I want, but I'm not going to really know
Like
unless
anybody
I'm
with any
there.
experience with something, right?
Yeah.
That's if it's a big experience, and it's not an Olympian though in the way that that's put on a pedestal. It's an Olympian because of being
The monumental task of overcoming
the
your
student.
humanity.
But it was easy actually for me to join. It was, and people can
I
say,
was just
well, yeah,
trying to,
you
find a, you know,
yes, it's a good
comparison.
comparison because it is. We were definitely applying for the top-notch positions in what it seems to be the universe that we think of as the universe, whatever that the size of it is that we're talking about. But
I'm gonna work in some kind of capacity with this planet.
right, so so vehicles are all prepared for this. This isn't new to anybody really anymore. I mean, the idea of well, let me put it this way: it's some people are still suppressing it a lot for whatever reason. I'm not blaming them because they're not good or bad for it, but but there's others that are have been a mindset have been in the mindset for a long time of kind of accepting the view that there's nothing else beyond the earth and the human kingdom. Everybody's. or if there is, anyway, which is more accurate actually that they're space aliens they're talking about, because that's actually a more accurate way of thinking about everything. But not that there is nothing above the earth in terms of something to subscribe to, aspire to, and make application to. Because a lot of humans don't have that
Evolve
program in their
to.
heads that exists. And it's only in the sense of the religions that it seems to exist the most. But then the space aliens now introduced a way of aspiring to that um, as well. So nobody gets lost in all their beliefs unless they never examine things that might be true, but that they don't, you know, know what the evidence of it is. That's why you see people, coming down on us and saying, "Oh, you're a bunch of baloney. There is no
Oh,
this. Doesn't this exist?"
go check.
And okay, I know. Did I pop it out? Yeah, I did. Hey, Joseph Coates. Good evening, Matthew Carey. Joseph says tape 270. Yes, I'll be sure to listen to it tonight. Yeah, it's got all kinds of potency in it.
Okay, on.
Sure. Steve Jackson says, "Hey Sawyer and Kathy, hey, Stowe was getting up there in years by the time they left in 1997. If there had been no 1997 exit, was there any discussion about or plan for when Doe passed away?" No, I don't think so. Uh, because, um,
What about the
uh,
times that he talked about leaving before the group, maybe?
yeah, right. That's what I was thinking too. You reminded me of it. Yeah, which they talked about in 1978 that they might leave before us.
Well, and even in the tape, one of the tapes that we just listened to in the 260s, Doe was talking about he didn't know if he was going to go before you guys.
Right,
So,
right. So in that way, yes, been quite a bit of things actually, but nothing like planning for his departure. Except, well, in a sense, yes, because even more than I'm thinking at first, uh, but just not in the way that I think most people would think about it. It was like being responsible for the task that you were leaving behind, to start another task and then overseeing what happens to the students on the way out. And Doe dreaded that because he didn't know if the class could stay together because he knew the kind of bombardment that they were all getting from the lower forces, and if he was outside this atmosphere, he would have less of a handle on how to deal with the particulars of their bombardment as well. I'm not saying he couldn't deal with it, but that's why they came. That's why they take human vehicles so that they can talk to us one to one. So we can't like say, "Oh, he really meant this," or "He really meant that," or "That's not the right interpretation of it." That's what happens with the religions. That's why it's such a mess, right? So, I mean, that's the reason why this is the technology they use to take over human vehicles with their soul bodies, or a portion of their soul bodies, actually, not necessarily their entire soul body, because Doe
hmm
felt like T had uh, such a strong mind that uh, she could have more than one vehicle at her direct um, employ, I guess, or
command or.
command. I mean, she was doing tasks. So, and those tasks require all kinds of thinking and stuff. Um, and they're trying to do the best job they can with everything they do. And that's their joy. It's an actual literal. joy. I mean, I believe it because I experienced some of it in the classroom. Though I completely took it for granted in many ways. Um, I have all kinds of things to say about it, how young I was, I guess. I'm not going to blame it on that, my leaving, but because I don't know that as a fact. Maybe I should have been a lot better. Okay, but it doesn't do any good to dwell on the negatives in these regards
Or the
because,
past because you can't change it.
right, because I can't change it. So it's what you do, and Doe even talks about it in this tape, that he was talking about the Sexaholics Anonymous meetings that they were thinking about, um, uh, mm,
Well, you guys were already going to them
right, participating in to try to help them
and to, you know,
to see that
see the
they're
next
right,
steps
that they're
beyond those
actually.
meetings.
Go ahead and maybe want to
No,
say it
that's all I
about
was.
it because no, I think I want to hear the way you say it because it's good to hear in different words, and
Well, just that you guys were gonna go to those meetings and people that seemed that were recognizing,
hmm
that they were gonna be given. That's what you guys are trying to work out. Were they going to be given a phone number to call, and then a possible, place to where a meeting was going to be,
right,
like maybe one meeting a week in different cities, or
right,
was
to
it
be
just
able,
going to be like a phone call, or yeah.
right, and all the logistics of that is what they're talking about throughout this. But um,
Yeah,
s- why did I go into that direction?
it's part of the tape.
Yeah, it's part of the tape, but I thought I had a reason, but I lost it.
You'll get it.
Well, I'll go back to the question about preparing for the
Well, and was
plan for
there
Doug
somebody,
passing away.
was there, like, I think he goes on to ask, was there somebody that was like a successor? Somebody that.
Well, what we learned was that there would be no successor. None of the students were capable of leading the classroom.
Leading?
No, leading,
Yeah.
like
Thought you said leaving.
being the one representative that was in touch with their older member. And so they would have Doe had the final say with us because we wanted him to. We respected that he did. We loved that he did because we knew we could trust everything he said. And and even if we didn't understand it, which I many times didn't, um, uh, I knew that I could trust it. And even though that could be a challenge to me, and it is a challenge to us. It's supposed to be a challenge to us because we have to be able to, we have to have the bombardment from the lower forces trying to tell us and convince us that this isn't the right path in order to build the strength of mind to continue to look into that direction. So it becomes harder, but it also, the next level, it gives us the help. But we don't get it as much if we're not actually asking them for it in our minds. And we don't get as much if we don't give it away to somebody else and leave room in our minds to then receive even higher information from the next level. And when I say higher information, I'm not talking about new information that Doe and T didn't go into. No, that's not what happens. What happens is that you get more of a perspective of the depth of understanding that comes with what they said in the audio tapes. You just you grow to recognize more. Uh, it's a growth in a certain department of growth. That doesn't mean it's the ultimate department because it's also limited by your behavior and the more we are leaking our force through sensuality and sexuality, the the less mind of that mind that's given to us by the next level to every human is available to help our minds grow because we're not going to. Um, I mean, it's all relative, and there's degrees in all this, and I know that's because I know that I'm not perfect in this direction,
No, we are not.
and so it's which is in a sense is it's where I'm at because of where I'm at, and I like where I'm at, and but I know that there's more to grow into, and I know that we can all grow as fast as we want to grow. It's a personal choice, and we can't judge anybody else. I mean, we can try, we can think we can, but it doesn't do any good,
Right. It's not going to get you any further in your journey.
right? So everybody's responsible to Doe if they recognize Doe as their older member, and it might not come to you in a blast or something, or it might just come to you as a wow, I actually believe that, I don't know how it might come to somebody, but when it comes to you, then you're starting out. I mean, you're still starting out. You're not change in the twinkle of the eye. It's a type of a change in the twinkle of an eye, I think, because I certainly got a big dose in 1975.
I did too.
Yeah,
I got it.
yeah, and I knew, you know, um,
I think a lot of people get a big dose.
yeah, and sometimes it takes, a lot of difficulties in life before the next level, and asking. Even depending, asking to us isn't the same thing as what the next level considers to be asking. I don't think it has to be in words. Uh, it's where someone's heart is. I think that's what they're looking for. Um, because that essentially is the organ of, I guess, um, the translation of the Force. The Force, like
Well, they were talking
Star
about the
Wars.
the force in the last like three tapes.
Yes, they were. They were using the word Force.
Yeah.
And
So of course I had to look up when Star Wars came out.
what was it again?
I forgot.
1977, was
Yeah,
it? Or
it was
78?
in the 70s. I forgot exactly.
Okay, so let me get back to the question though,
Um,
because one of the things that they talked about in terms of dough being gone, and I believe he said that you would have to decide whether you were going to give your life to getting their information out and trying to do it in the way that your older member would do it, and that's the task.
Sorority talked about how, he had thought about it.
Yeah,
What would he do if he was the last one left for
right.
whatever reason? I think that's what he said too. I can't remember, so I don't really want to say, but I believe that's what he said that he would want to,
Well, that's
talk
where
to
my head
people.
was at then, and that's where my head is at now.
He would talk to
That
people.
it's get I mean put the information out, do that service. Seek out. what your who your older member might be attracting you to in that regard. And it doesn't mean you stalk them or anything. I'm not talking about that. It can sound like that. That's stupid.
Like,
No.
yeah, you like, I think that's a good point. Like, you can do it alone, of course.
Yeah.
It is a personal, private journey,
Hmm.
but it's also something that you can connect with others.
Sure.
You don't have, if there are other people that believe in the same thing. If there are other people that believe in tea and dough, then I don't know why you wouldn't want to talk to them.
Right. I mean,
And
combine your efforts even.
yeah, exactly.
So it's not like there's anything wrong with any expression. That's not a human expression.
Because
I
there's
mean, a
not many
human
of us out
meaning,
there.
promoting the human kingdom. Not that the human kingdom's bad, and that's something to get across to people too. It's not bad, but it is the difference between grades in school, and it is a whole kingdom level of difference to
So
where
I guess
there's,
the question would be, what student would be qualified to lead,
there are none.
and there was not any
Right,
according to Doe.
right. Um, and there doesn't need to be, because there doesn't need to be a group. There is no new cult. There's no inner, people used to think, well, yeah, I just say that, but then there's some inner circle. But no one's got into that inner circle. I mean, I guess Kathy, if you want to look at me that way. I mean,
Right, we're the inner circle, babe.
we're the inner circle together now, I
And
guess. Anybody
that's what
else
I
would be
keep
the inner
saying. Like,
circle if they were.
if a couple is a cult, then I guess we are, because you and I are, together, and that's about all there is.
Right, but we're not looking for members. We don't want members. I don't want members. And
My
Kathy used to
friend,
talk about that.
yeah, my friend Aaron joked about that, we were the worst cult people ever. Like, if we were trying to, do a cult, like, we had her in our clutches for like 2 weeks, and she didn't, we didn't
Right,
bother
I
at
guess
all.
that's good that we did that.
We
That
let her
happened, right?
go. We let her go.
She got to see some reality to that picture that she hadn't seen before.
She's doing good.
Yeah,
I haven't talked to her for a little bit.
yeah, I hope so too. Anyway,
She's
so
escaped our clutches. Aaron, if you're watching, call me.
everybody
But not right
becomes
now.
their own inner circle. It's like,
Yeah, I mean,
and
like, what is
with
that? Like,
dough,
that's ridiculous.
that's just the way that some people would have expressed it to me, or tried to think
I
that they
mean, if
could,
we're cult leaders, does that mean people will give us their money?
yeah, that's a cult, that leader that I,
Give us your money.
wouldn't object to. No, I'm only joking.
We're being
No,
stupid.
I wouldn't change anything for money. Well, I mean, I don't know what I might, it'd be ridiculous to think about it. If someone offers us something, then we'll take that offer as a possibility of
It was
what to do
funny.
with it.
I was talking to one of my passengers today, and I was telling her, that I hated money and I wish that we didn't have it, and that I really truly believe that money was the root of all evil. I know I say the craziest stuff to my passengers. No wonder I haven't been getting tipped lately. But anyway, um, she was like, "Oh, you must be an Aquarius or something," and I was like, "No, I'm an Aries." And she said, "You're the first Aries I've met that didn't love money."
Oh, really?
I don't know what that means.
That's interesting that she brought up astrology.
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah.
That's tuning into, forces that are above the earth that are potentially having influence over us or having an effect on us, which T and O felt that was the case. The next level is, this earth is a laboratory, and the thoughts are also part of the laboratory that we have around us,
Influencing.
and the energies and the polarities and the elements and the heavy metals and all that is, I learned that they tried to get rid of the gypsy moths in the New England area in the 1800s, and they came
Hmm.
up with a concoction of lead and arsenic, and they made animals walk through a bath of lead and arsenic,
And how
and
many of them died?
they ended up having the symptoms that became known as polio.
Gee.
And Vermont was one of the first places where it was diagnosed in Rutland as the first polio epidemic. 200 something people were
Hmm.
coming down with the same symptoms because they were spraying this stuff all over the trees, this lead
To
and
try to get rid of the moths.
arsenic to get rid of the gypsy moths. And you know how I know this story is true is because when I was living in Vermont, I know that we had a gypsy moth problem that was every 7 years or something like that.
Right.
And
It has been.
I was there when it happened, and you'd see like their cocoons, like encompass the whole branch was covered with this fuzzy white, you know, material,
Right.
and they were basically destroying the tree. They're smothering the trees.
Well, there's like the elm thing that came through and killed like a bunch of trees way back when. Took out a bunch of our forest. So it doesn't surprise me, that they were, trying to stop to save as much of the forest as they could.
A lot of true things are coming out. No, we can't trust everything we hear, of course. But we do get some indications that something might be true, if we have past experiences and, little things that happened in our lives to cue us into something as maybe being true and other things maybe that aren't true, that we have the same kind of condition.
Yeah, I saw that one of the comments this lady was talking about, like the cloud seeding and the contrails, chemtrails, whatever, and she was like, "We can." They're literally doing it right in front of our eyes.
Hmm.
Like we can see
That's right.
trails in the sky. And people always say, "Oh, it's just, jet, it's water vapor, and
Yeah.
it's, because it's freezing at this altitude." And it's like, okay, well, how come I didn't see that when I was a kid? How come I didn't see that when I was literally laying, looking up at the clouds for hours at a time and never saw that?
Right. Living in cities and things.
Living
Right.
all over the United States, because I was with the Marine,
Right. Right.
My stepdad was a Marine.
Right.
So we moved. So like I never saw any stuff like that. We didn't start seeing that until really the 2000s. I was just a little bit here and there. And then the
Yeah.
2010s, bam.
2010s was
I
big
think
time.
so. That's when bam, they were just all over all the time every freaking where.
And that's right after good old Al Gore went public with the inconvenient truth.
Just yesterday they were spraying the hell out of the skies here, and what happened today? It rained like crazy here.
So
I
there's
mean,
all
I
these
know it's like,
companies all
like
around the United States
it's probably
and other
getting
places in the world
conspiratorial, but still.
that are trying to put stuff, to change the atmosphere. They're experimenting with the planet and
Sick
the
of it.
atmosphere of it, right?
It's not cool.
Because
Like
that's what
it's we
they
should
can
not
do.
be
They
doing
think that's
these
what they do.
things.
They're experimenting with our bodies, with all the injections of things.
I think I need to bring the
You know,
awning
they're
in.
ex- this is all. It doesn't mean that these things are all bad or wrong,
I'm just gonna
but
bring
then
it.
again, considering how toxic so many things are, I guess
Right, right.
yeah,
It's gypsy moth.
yeah, right,
It's like Agent Orange and stuff. It's like, oh, that's
yeah,
wild.
Agent Orange, right, the defoliate spread that all the soldiers were subject to. Jeez, they're so primitive, and to give them any respect is very hard. But I know that the individuals aren't necessarily primitive. They haven't been the recipient yet of of better ways of making choices, better ways of doing things. The next level provides that information, you know. So that's what people have been pulling on for a long time. But as soon as technology started to develop to where they could, you know, gain all these elements and then try some a little here and try a little here and see what happens to people, and then oh wow, look at that! It kills the moths. Oh yeah. Oh, it kills the people too. Oh, well, that's the way. That's the way it goes.
The babies in that area being 3.
Yeah, that was the case actually in the lake where I was living in lake in middle of Vermont, in northern Vermont actually, from the acid rain that killed the fish and everything else. I was as a boy I would go up to Lake Mayapack, and there was a small lake near Lake Mayapack, and one time I went there because I used to go there with my family to vacation up in my aunt's place. She had like a land and she was farming and everything. About she had an acre, that's all. But uh, um, anyway, so there was a lake there, and we used to swim in it all the time. And one time I went there and it was closed because all the fish were floating on the top, the whole lake. And so they cleaned it all up and they put water in it again. I don't know what happened to the water. I don't know. Um, Maybe it filled up because it was spring fed. Anyway, but that's humans are. It's right to use the technologies. We can think that that's the cost of technology, and yeah, I guess it is some of it. But when we see the problems and we don't try to fix them and even take it off the market, then until we fix them, then we're not doing what the next level would do. We're going down another path, and the next level doesn't like it. But they also know that they're vehicles that they make, and they can help people by learning to boost your immune system and things like that. But and having positive thoughts is a big part of that, and not sinking into depression and negatives all the time. Even though nothing wrong with going through stages of that, because that everything can lead to growth. So I mean, there's a whole bunch of things with the polio vaccines and everything that I'm not going to talk about, but other people can see it because it's coming out. It's not misinformation necessarily. It's the voices that were not allowed to be said, and we even saw how that was happening during 2019 and 20, 21, 22, which I'm not going to go into with any more detail. And beyond 22, 23, and 24. So there are a few things that have happened that are good, but the whole system is broken. It's like uh, because of how many people are in bed with, living off the system. That's why it's broken because nobody wants to put the money in place to try to do things in a better way for the vehicles, and it may be beyond correcting, and that's why the next level knows that. Yeah, and so it's not going to matter who wins the war over here or there. It's gonna because the wars are going on, multifaceted wars are happening. Yeah, right. They say the same thing over and over again, and then they do the opposite. Even if they have, and I've been talking about this, and I know that Doe's talked about it, and I'm sure Kathy's talked about it and thought about it, but it's like we were told that Even the ones that get involved for good reasons and have some good ideas, they get corrupted by the system, right? And you have to play the game to stay in the game. Well, you can't change it from the inside either because the inside doesn't want to
That's what
change. That was the idea, right?
party. How am I going to change their opinion?
Right, 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 right.
How am I going to show how, my makeover?
Yeah.
How are you going to be rich if you don't hang out with rich?
Let me go back to the chat. Oh, okay, yeah. There's a few more things in here. Yeah, quite a few. You guys are all talking up a storm. Let me catch up. So, as a general rule of thumb, I don't think this planet would be worth living on if it weren't animals or music. It brings us together, share empathy. We don't have to click with everyone either. Did Doe in the class ever talk about feeling non human? Oh, Jackson was Steve Jackson was saying as in who might succeed him. Right. Oh, I see. We did talk about that. Thanks to Kathy bringing that up. Uh, okay, good. So I'll go back to what Joseph was talking about. Um, well, yeah, yeah. They Doe and T both didn't were not at all comfortable in the human kingdom. Um, they didn't, they didn't relate to their bodies anymore, except for the way that the bodies needed to eat and sleep, and but they didn't even go along with that. And they got along. They if they sometimes they felt like if they got 2 hours sleep, they were doing fine, and they learned to program their vehicles to um, to be give good night's rest from a short period of time. We actually had that instruction to say to our vehicles that you know we're going to wake up refreshed and we're going to uh, whatever time we have to sleep is going to be enough. And then but that didn't mean that they wouldn't take a nap. And they treated us the same way, but they actually required us to sleep a lot because they said, "Are we having so many changes?" So we got like about, I'd say, 9 hours a day of sleep time for the first number of years because we would have an hour nap in the middle of the day, and then we were required to be in our bunk. We didn't have to sleep if we couldn't sleep. That was fine, but and we could get up to use the bathroom or whatever, and it wasn't like you were doing something wrong if you stood there and looked in the sky for a minute, whatever. But the task was to go to sleep, so you weren't going to be moseying about doing your own thing unless you don't want to be in that group anymore. And so, and that could be a problem for some people, like, not being able to do something they want to do when they want to do it. Right. Nobody was forced to stay there. It wasn't even coerced by, like, we weren't like sitting around beefing each other up by talk of philosophy and talk about, everything that happened to us in the world, nostalgic things and, what kind of music we liked and in the world. So, so none of that was going on. And some people, I'm sure, didn't like that after a while. So that became like a filter, in order to. uh, end up with the ones that really were going to go the distance because it wasn't going to get easier to go the distance. It was going to get harder.
There's quite a
I did want to talk about that,
and
but I'll wait.
Thank you, Steve Jackson.
Were you saying that to your in the chat? Oh, okay, cool. No, not yet. I didn't get down there. I'm like still trying to figure out where I am.
Let's write under notes of contents comment.
Uh, oh, okay, yeah, there it is. My brain just keeps on going with what I was talking about. And, I just have to kind of have a slow down point.
I see.
Kathy, I donated to the refried beans fund just for your information, laughing out loud. Yes, I think even several times, right? Thank you for that. Oh, you did. Oh, that's great. I appreciate it. Um, Actor Michael Merchant is here. Hello, all. Hope you are well. Yes, we're doing okay. We're still kicking here. I am loser is here, and how many light years are they from planet Earth? How far away? I have no idea, except that they can be anywhere from on the surface of the planet, or anywhere to Pluto, or way beyond that.
Question below.
Back and forth too. They can go wherever they need to go with their tasks. What was that? Oh, it's Steve Jackson. Interesting to think of what the group might have done if Doe left earlier than the class. Maybe class members would do what you're doing now and spread the word individually around the country, etc. I think so. Well, because that's what they told us to do. They didn't have to spell it out and say, uh, you know, go all around the world or all around the United States or anything like that, because what they said was, um, actually, we have this in their writing. Disseminate our information. The dissemination project, they called it in another letter. Then they called it giving people the ability to have a more in-depth uh, understanding about what we're all about. Was in another letter. In the Heaven's Gate book, it's said in a number of ways, and one of them is that the souls that were back here were to get their information out. It's a task for them to get the information out. Um, and they were referring to the people that were here after they left. That was the reference, the context of that. You can read it in A Team from Deep Space Surfaces Before Departure in the Heaven's Gate book on heavensgate.com, which you can download that whole book in text format for your own use.
There's another question that I'd like you to get to. I know you talked about when you answer the next question.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yalders, how many members of the class exist besides you? Well, I don't ever really know that because I never know how somebody is thinking. That's not in communication with me.
That's a pretty straightforward question. Who's left behind?
Right, I'm going to get to that, but I just wanted to start it with that qualification. Right, but some there's the only ones I know about that are actively sharing T and Do's information with people are Carl Odie, Juan Odie. I don't know if Pip Odie's doing it much, but he's also a believer and a former member. So I would put him in the response to your question that he's a former member that believes in them. And the fourth person would be well, Mark and Sarah. I can't say what they believe. Right, I'm sorry. So five and six then. Well, four and five. That's Mercody and Serapody. Even though we have our lots of disagreements with,
And then
doesn't mean that they're not former members that believe in Tiendo.
Pam Odie.
Yes, then there's some that were in the classroom that are still in their vehicles, who I've had relationship with, communication relationships with, and that's Hav Odie and Pam Odie and Arth Odie and um, and Odie. Who else? Rio or Neody. That would be five. But I don't know. He might believe in Tiendo still because he kind of said that I think on the tapes of the 2020 broadcast. So I, put him that we know that that's the way he feels. Um, so I guess
Since they can travel around every hello DSM 999. Since they can travel around everywhere, why don't they land on Earth and help the rest of us?
they don't like you.
That's terrible. I was gonna respond something flippant too. That's
They
funny. I
don't
was
like
gonna
us.
say because this place is a hellhole.
Well,
Would
that's the
you
truth.
stop on this planet if you didn't have to? Like if you were off this planet, would
They'd be shooting you. They'd be shooting you or trying to capture you and take and dissect your vehicle.
no thanks.
And so you basically, you'd have to kill them all. Well, all the ones in the military anyway. That's what would happen on this planet. I mean, literally,
If they
that's
were
what would happen
seen,
on this
yeah.
planet.
Well, and we do think that they maybe do come to the planet and help us.
They are helping us a lot.
Yeah,
We have no idea how
we
much they're
wouldn't be
helping
in
us.
this motorhome. We wouldn't have the car that we just
Everybody,
got. Like
everybody.
we have
E- But help to them isn't having our creature comforts,
no,
except beyond to a certain point. Yes, they want us to be comfortable. They want us to even have nice things, but they don't want us to want those nice things. So they give people things. They work with people all the time, every day, because they don't have days like we have days.
right.
So, but they're working all the time in their schedules, on their labs, and they can hear the radio waves that our brains put out if they want to hear them. They can select a certain range of frequencies. Then they can see that like as a light, bright lighting up a little bit when somebody's thirsting for the truth. When somebody's wanting to do a better job, when somebody's suffering and wants to please the next level, the Lord, the creators of this planet and the life forms on it. When however they think about that in their religious talk or the spiritual talk, all potentially are seeking help from the next level or not, and how much and how serious about that help shows then when we're willing to change and overcome the things that are bringing us down. And we can be fooled to thinking that money is going to save us from and technology is going to save us from destruction on the earth. But it doesn't work that way. because there's so much conflicting desires by everybody wanting what's good for them. It's totally selfish on this planet, even though within their families and tribes and things, there's degrees of not being selfish. And that's all there for lessons in the human kingdom, which is instilled by the next level. That's the reason why we're not acting like the barbarians of World War I and II, I think. But that might be on back, maybe that's coming back, because the way the lower forces, all they care about, all the space aliens care about is getting off this planet and or having or living inside of it and having more members to have governments make spacecrafts for and make weapons so they can try to fight off the next level when the next level comes in mass and decides that that's it, it's over and it's recycle time. And then we won't be talking, I don't think. It might be a period of time where that's happening. I mean, it might end up being many years that where we, because each individual is going to not see that the same way, whatever it is. I mean, you could, because the next level can, the eyes are only geared to see a certain speed of things. If something goes beyond the speed that our eyes can keep up with, we just don't see it. And I saw a video from Mr. B, Mr. BB's YouTube channel. I always forget how to say his whole name, but he's got people all over the world sending him videos and photos of clouds and streaks of light and stuff and fireballs and everything. And it's very interesting because he was showing us one that at full speed I couldn't hardly see it. I didn't actually see it at full speed. But then at when he diminished it 25 times, and then I could see it go by, and it looked fast then, you know, uh, and it looked like a streak, so it was like faster than meteors fall, because meteors, with the friction that they're burning up, they're slower than some of these things that we're seeing, and I can testify that those things are real to some degree. I don't know what they are necessarily, but you could identify satellites because they kind of go with a wobble and they go the same speed and the same trajectory overhead that every night or every couple nights. I don't know if they go around once a night. I don't know how fast they are sometimes, but because we were doing night watch for years when we were living outdoors in Wyoming and northern Colorado and in southern Texas. And so there was always a team, two members staying up all night, taking turns every hour, watching the heavens and writing down anything that they saw that was unusual. And so we'd read that when we got up in the morning and see what was being reported. And um, and there were all kinds of things that we would see streaks, they would say, or just might say a satellite seems to be a satellite, and then you'd see these other things that were streaks but without any breakup, like no smoke, because you'd see some smoke with the meteor sometimes, a little haziness behind it, but but with some things, wow. I mean, a number of different kind of experiences. I just don't know how to describe them. But that's what we're talking about with this Oyamama return. If it's the same craft or if it's another one that was designed to give some of the same characteristics to humans to examine. And as it may seem to be doing with this Atlas uh, 3, 3I or something is called, right? Because of the Atlas telescope that took pictures of it. Because there was another comet that was called Atlas. I don't know why they have to confuse things so much.
Yeah.
Just give them all different names. And you can put. but the um, I mean they do because they had the letters and numbers that's on with them, so I shouldn't be critical of them. But but that atlas, the first one, didn't come from interstellar space according to their uh, reports on that, but it broke up into like 10 parts. I don't know how long it took to break up into like 10 parts. I don't know if it was 10 parts or eight or what exactly it was, but it was quite a few that were they thought it broke up. But they never said why it broke up. Or I remember telling individuals on that same story how Comet West broke up into 4 parts, while T and Do were running around the country holding meetings or waking up. Actually, I think is no, I think it was 76. So it was holding meetings or at the end of the meetings. Maybe that was a signal to end the meetings. I never thought of it that way. Even though T and Do weren't looking for things, they never talked about Comet West that I ever heard about. But they took the names West, uh, Shelley West and Jason West was Do for legal reasons. Like if they were staying in a hotel or something. Anyway, I'm not going to keep on going with that thread because it could keep on going and going and going. Since they can. So DSM 999 says, is there any other members that have YouTube channels? Well, Carlotti has a YouTube channel, and he doesn't have it anymore. Right. But he had a channel for quite a while. And Carlotti's got a blog.
But he didn't do videos like you do.
No, he didn't do videos like these. He's got a blog, and he's done
He
quite
just
a bit of
had
writing
some
on it.
he just had some footage of the class from the 90s.
Right. He had a bunch of footage from the class in the 90s posted.
Well, it was 6 videos.
Yeah, 6 videos.
Maybe it was more than that, but
I think it was more than that.
it wasn't more than 10. It was I know cuz I watched them all several times. I mean,
But
I could be
oh, well,
wrong, but
but Juan Odie doesn't have a YouTube channel that I know about, but he's been doing a lot of things in Venezuela
is
on
he
the internet.
I can't remember where he's
And if you want to tune into his channel, give me your address to send an email to, and I'll ask him if he wants to communicate with people. He does speak English well, I'm decent, and but his native
well,
language
I
is
wouldn't like
Spanish.
offer up, I don't
I'm just saying that I'll tell Wanodi that.
yeah.
Well, he can decide.
Apparent
That's what I try
Yeah,
to do for
of course,
people.
yeah. Water is receding in multiple portions of Alaska, the first stage of a tsunami. There was an earthquake off the coast of Alaska.
Oh, really? When did that happen?
Well, this post is from an hour ago.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking at the
Does
comments
it
right
say what size?
I'm looking at the comments right now and I'll figure it out.
Oh, okay. I think it's gonna escalate to the point that it's gonna be very hard for somebody to deny that there's a lot of changes taking place on this planet overall, the entire planet, uh, mind and body, geology and everything, weather, the sun's heat. Somebody showed me a picture of saying that it snowed in New Mexico in Albuquerque the other day.
It snows in Albuquerque every winter.
No, this was in July. I think
Well,
it might have been like a freak hailstorm or something.
yeah, well,
Or maybe it was those people, the weather modification people.
hail is not uncommon, but it snows in Albuquerque.
I'm
There's
talking about in the
mountains.
summer.
I know, I understand that, but like it's at an elevation to where it does
Right.
snow. It's
Some
like
places are high elevation.
yes,
Right,
it's the
right.
desert, but it is surrounded by
Yeah,
mountains.
maybe it was a high elevation place.
But like
Yeah,
you
because
said,
we
it was
went through
hail.
those mountain
Well, hail
passes.
can look like
It was quite cold when we were there, that one place, right, where we were looking for the restroom by the dams over there, northern New Mexico.
yeah, it was freezing.
Yeah. That was like November, though, right?
14 minutes ago, it says
No, that was
the
not.
thread is cleared. I can't remember.
That was the next summer or
We went
something.
out there quite a bit.
Yeah. Anyway, so I guess I gave you a little idea about. Uh, Wait a minute. Minority does have a YouTube channel. He does. No? Okay. Yeah, I don't know if he does anymore anyway. So, um, leave it at that. Let's see. DSM 99 says, as far as we are aware, there aren't any. Oh, okay. Kathy said that. Good.
Yeah, I typed some stuff.
Vinny Dutra says, hi, Sawyer and Kathy. Have you guys ever heard of or read the Urantia book? Yes. I haven't read it. I've read some of it.
The Urantia, there's aren't there like a bunch?
Maybe there are a bunch
There
of
are a
Urantia
lot.
books. I know the first one that came out.
The Urantia papers or but there's
I
like
only knew it by the name
volumes.
Urantia book. I don't know. It was a big, thick book.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like my book almost.
Yeah, but
Oh,
there's like somebody I think Gabriel of
is the
Urantia. Well, no, he like took up the mantle or
is the
something
one
and
that was
he's been
channeling it?
no, he is somebody that is new. I believe. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I can't he's a piece of work.
No, I haven't followed. Well, yeah. So I guess that's the
I
answer to
looked
that
at some of
question.
that stuff.
So Kathy is familiar with a
But
lot of
he's
that.
written several more volumes in addition. There's a
Oh, I
lot.
see.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know about all those editions and things. I just know about the first one because somebody brought it into the classroom when they joined, and so when we were traveling around, it somehow made its way to the group that I was traveling around with for a short time, and I remember looking at it and kind of liking it because it was depicting, physical spacecrafts as helping humans with helping Jesus with the miracles and things, and and it's it's interesting to hear, uh, what Doe talks about in terms of the miracles. Like one of the things he said was that 90% of them were exaggerated. So to where the Rancher book is making it into a spiritual, but it's linking in the physical of having the UFOs doing the thing instead of having some spiritual blob, you know, flying around, like as a point of light or whatever. So it gives that reality. So I think it's a mixed message that you can get from it. I think, but it's something that, uh, from my opinion, isn't sustaining in my quest for as much of reality I can perceive of. TNO satisfy that for me completely. So you might want to look into their teaching, the information they left behind,
Now
which,
that you already addressed that one stuff, the yeah, you did at the beginning. Forgot, sorry.
yeah. So let's move on to. other things I had in my notes here. That in audio tape 270, Doe talked about a dream that he had. He was in New York City and he was at like a Sexaholics Anonymous meeting with T, but he couldn't see T, right? But there was a chair that he felt like T was sitting in,
The
and
dream.
uh, um, and that he couldn't restrain himself from standing up, but he looked over at T first, and then he got the feeling that T said go for it, and so he stood up and he told them in the meeting in New York where there were a lot of people at the meeting uh, that they were not sick, but that they were the chosen ones, and um, and that he was saying that we were there to visit, and and then he said because they were so off track, and he had to talk to them, so the three of them came up to. Oh wait, sorry. He talked about it as being a large meeting, and that it was New York City, but he doesn't know if it was a hotel, but a big auditorium. And he got disgusted and looked at T, and she said, "Go ahead and say what you want to say." And my voice just boomed, and all the heads turned and knew what I was saying was true. And that's all I remember. But they never went to New York City to have a meeting of any kind. Well, somebody might have tried a little bit. And I know I went through there with Chakoti, and we didn't have any instructions to stop there and try to hold a meeting. We were headed towards New England, to Boston, not, yeah, at that time to, I think, New Hampshire to put on a meeting in Maine.
Maine.
So I just wanted to share that part of today's tape 270 that Kathy and I listened to. Um, and then the next thing I wanted to bring up was an update to what we've been talking about a few times recently regarding Mark and Sarah, well, Mark in particular, actually, and was known in the classroom by the name Mercody, Mrcody, and how um, uh, I'm just going to read what I wrote. Um, that some will know what I'm talking about a little bit because they've been like Joseph Coates and others that have been in most of these streams recently, but some are not going to know, so you can ask questions if you want to. But but I'm going to read what I wrote about it. Callody, I'm saying Callody, Cllody. Um, what you're going to hear me reading is his response to Sawyer asking him if he knew it about anything about when Mark texted his partner Kathy and said that there was a comment by Carlody, Crlody, on Reddit Heaven's Gate that was telling teenagers how to off themselves. Okay, and so that's what this is Carloti's response to me asking him about what he wrote, uh, and whether whether he knows anything about. Because at the time I wasn't totally clear of remembering of an individual that I spoke to a number of times that took the name Carloti, Carloti. I'm going to say it that way. And um, so I was just confused. I just wanted to get confirmation that it wasn't Carlodi, even though I didn't, never thought for a moment that it was. So uh, because the individual, all they did was uh, talk about the coroner's report of the members that left, and so I'm not going to say any more about that. And you can go read it on Reddit if you want, or somewhere else. But so what Call Lodi said in response to my question about what Mark said, he said, "I was not aware of this up until now. It is very sad and disappointing to hear that Mark, with his last name, which I don't like to say still, is once again attempting to spread dangerous misinformation, particularly when it risks causing serious harm and detriment to Carloti, who I am sure is already dealing with enough unnecessary nonsense. Mark's repeated efforts to silence and or smear others who are simply trying to respect and preserve the teachings of Tiendo are not only unproductive, but reckless. I gladly invite Mark to carefully reread my initial comment, as at no point do I give any instructions or encouragement to anyone on how to harm themselves in any way, nor have I ever done. I simply provided accurate documented information regarding the manner in which the class exited their vehicles in March of 1997. This is information which is widely available through official sources and which others have a right to know without distortion or censorship. I also invite Mark to carefully review my entire Reddit comment and post history, which should make it plainly evident that I am not Carloti. Mark King's willingness to jump to wild, false conclusions and make harmful accusations without first checking the facts says far more about his motivations than it does about people he targets. If Mark wishes to contact me directly, he is more than welcome to do so by sending an email to myself, callody at cllody@mail.com. So, I would hope that he wouldn't, if he's listening, because Mark's been listening to many of these, if you're listening, I hope you won't, you know, try to hold some bottom line on that score and admit that you're wrong. Remember that I could be wrong. That lesson.
Well, I don't think we need to harp on that, but
Right, I shouldn't harp on that. You're right. Because nobody needs that thrown back in their
it was
face.
an easy enough
But
mistake to make with I still, I'm curious why that person is using a name so close to Carlotti's.
I don't know.
And I don't, I,
I don't think there's any harm in that. I don't think it was malicious.
but there is harm in it though because people are confusing him for Carlotti and
Yeah,
or
I
him or
don't.
her. I don't know, and I'm
I
just
don't think that way at all about it. I
well,
think
Mark
it's.
did, and
But
so it caused him to think that Carlotti's out there, saying whatever.
yeah, but see, here's what I'm going to say to that. Okay, for whatever it's worth, I'm not going to. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, maybe you're right. I'm not saying that uh, individual might examine using a different name, but what if he picks one that is close to another one? I
Well,
guess you could try
maybe
not to.
don't like have an Odie name.
Well, that's not our choice, though.
I know,
We
but
don't we don't
I
get
mean,
to say
like
that. We don't
that
know if Doe
that
is encouraging
also
that.
like causes confusion, and like we were talking about last night, it causes confusion,
It
and
can. It
the
does.
same thing that that person is accusing Mark of doing, they're kind of doing as well.
No, I wouldn't say that. I
in
think
a
you need to
unconscious
think about
maybe
the way you're
way.
saying that and think about it a little bit more. I don't know. It doesn't
I'm just
recognize
saying there's
being
other
from
things,
Tiendo's
like I've
mind.
said, I know that you talked to that person before thinking it was Carlotti, and there was something that they said that was like, we were like, why would Carlotti be saying that?
Right, but I think that was an influence. I think an influence was having us see that name the same way they were getting Mark to see that name. And they
Well,
also got you to see that name that way.
anyway, I'm just saying.
That's what I think is happening. Because what Kathy's talking about is that I looked at that wording of CLLODY and I thought, is that? That is, I'm not sure what that is. And I thought, um, well, but it's not. It's in uppercase letters, and I don't remember Carlodi um, writing his name in uppercase letters. I'm not saying he hasn't. I probably just don't remember, but that's the thought I had about it. And isn't it interesting that, uh, well, were telling me that you had an experience where you were thinking that that was, when you saw that name, you thought about Carlodi, being Carlodi maybe, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then
And they talk like they,
and
you
so
know, are
Mark,
100% correct. I'm not saying that Carlotti talks like that, but I'm, I'm I mean, I'm
right.
going to talk.
All right. So anyway, so Mark uh, brought that up. So I think what he did was he passed that thought on to us, and it was
I'm
probably a
talking about in the past. I'm talking about like, I don't know, a year or something ago.
when
Like,
somebody mistaked him for Carlodi.
no, when you and I mistaked him for Carlotti on a Reddit post or
Oh,
something.
did we really?
Yes. And
Okay.
then we
Well,
were
I'm
like,
not
wait,
saying there's
hold
not
up. This is not,
value to
we were
what
like, hold up. This is not
Kathy's saying.
Carlotti.
Um,
Just the name is just very, very similar.
right. I mean, you know, but whatever. Okay, that's okay. That's what it. You can take it for what it's worth. If Call Odie happens to be watching this YouTube channel right now, um, you know, take it with whatever you think about it. You know, ask Doe about it is what I would say, um, because that's the way you can get clear on whether you could choose
How are you
another name
supposed
or
to know
something.
that, like, Doe's talking to you?
The same way anybody knows, they have to uh, ask. Once they ask, if they believe in Doe, they are gonna trust that Doe's gonna give them an answer if it's a question that Doe wants them to have an answer to, because it depends on what they ask, whether Doe's gonna how Doe's gonna treat that question, because Doe's so I trust that that can happen, and Carl Lodi is somebody that I
So you just
believe
called him
believes.
You just called him Carlotti.
I know,
It's too. It's just. It's
I know,
there's confusion,
I understand that, but
and it just seems like nothing.
I'm not going to tell somebody. You can tell people if you
No,
want
I'm not going to tell
your
anybody
opinion that
either. I don't really
they
want to.
shouldn't use OD names, but I've already gone through this too many times and tried to talk about what little detriments there were, and well,
Like, if you're not like overcoming your humanity and not having sex, not
judge that.
smoking, drinking, I'm just saying, those were the people that had OD names. They were people in the
Well,
class.
you don't know what degree that individual is doing
I don't, but I'm
to
just
overcome their
saying,
humanness.
there's not a representative present on this planet to give anybody an OD name. As far as we understand it, as
Well,
far
that's
as we
true.
know.
I agree with that.
So, like, it's to me, it's not. it doesn't matter. My opinion doesn't matter, but it's not
Oh, it
appropriate to be
matters,
taking OD names.
but it doesn't mean I'm gonna agree with
Like
it.
I don't like when people have like said, "Oh, well, Kathy, your OD name I think would be XYZ." I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't think about that because
No,
I don't have one."
right.
And I that's not like what we're doing.
That's not what you're doing, and I don't use my OD name because I'm not in the class now. I mean, I'm in the class, but not.
Right,
I'm not
that was
meeting
for
the graduation
individuals.
requirements
In the class.
of what I wanted to aspire to. I don't know. That's the only reason. I just am uncomfortable using my Soyoti name. And Doe gave me the name Sawyer, and that's the name he used with the public. Because the other thing about the Odie names,
But in
and
the
some
tapes
people
he
don't
calls
know,
you Soyo.
yes, because it was meant to be in private that those names were used between class members and T and Doe.
Right, that's why I'm saying that's
Right.
why I don't, it just
So I want to say a little bit more about that so that it can be where I'm coming from is uh, makes some sense to somebody, because in the Beyond Human tapes, Doe didn't use the Odie names, except I think he slipped one time, and it doesn't mean that was a terrible thing to do. But in the Doe's Final Exit, he did use the Odie names, right? So people could, think, well, he used it in Doe's Final Exit, so um, what's wrong with me having those names? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong. Kathy feels otherwise, that's fine. We can agree to disagree on that. And and I, but but I think that
I'm not necessarily
we each
saying
have
that
our
it's
own
like
criteria.
wrong. I don't like that word. I just feel like it's inappropriate. So, yes, you could say wrong too. It's just a different adjective.
Well, we're not going to put you all through our arguing about it, but yeah, it's so maybe let's see, move on to. You can see the influence is causing confusion. That's another thing that they're causing. So this is where I have to come around to what Kathy's saying and recognize some value to it. That you know, why cause confusion? Because the way I was thinking about this at the time, in the past and currently, but I don't want to you know be harping on this more than I don't know. I don't like talking about it, but those names were given by T and Doe to certain individuals, and then Doe to certain individuals. Okay, and that became a family name. And that doesn't mean that's the limit to the family. It's not the limit to the family. All the souls that are returning are part of that same family. They just weren't uh, taking vehicles um, uh, when the older members and to the response to the older members going around publicly and talking about. They weren't at that point. Those souls weren't choosing vehicles, or if they did, were choosing a vehicle that could have been ready at that time for that experience. And we'll talk about what ready means. Um, uh, it doesn't mean they're any different from part of that family, and they can even be growing faster than individuals that were ready for that experience. There's no way for us to judge that. And if we try to do it, I think we're really making a big mistake to try to judge where anybody else is at. Uh, I mean, there's degrees of looking at this too. I mean, if somebody's hurting somebody else, they're not demonstrating behavior that any student member of the next level would demonstrate. If they, if they were they had an angry outrage and they threw something at somebody and it hurt them, I hope they get a good lesson to not do that again. But that doesn't mean that they're condemned either. I mean, this is all by the next levels design. We all have our lessons. That's what being ready means, is having a vehicle that a soul that's returning um, can use to overcome what that vehicle wants to do. And because that vehicle wants to do human things. And so that's a way for us to have a sparring partner, to be in a vehicle that doesn't want to cooperate with us. Or to a certain degree they do, because otherwise they can't even perceive the information, so they wouldn't even be trying, except the way that individuals try to conquer addictions and without with thinking maybe that a higher power was putting their hands in a higher power hands instead of thinking like an all right, all out being a part of a religion or something, because of the distortions in the religions. Some people can't or don't want to or just have a hard time with. Let me put it that way. With any kind of religious talk, religious sounding talk. So, but they also well, I don't need to go through the complete Odie things, but so in my opinion of what I think would be more accurate would be for somebody to have a name that maybe can sound like that or something. I don't know, um, or have something in front of it saying, that this is talking about somebody that's new to this information relative to their vehicles experience. And so that, but see, the problem with that is that I went through is that there's a whole bunch of people that have an Odie name that don't believe in T and O anymore. Last, last I heard, and even said things against them and publicly, which so the Odie name doesn't really mean that much anyway. But some people take the Odie name because they want to, I don't know.
I don't think you should take an Odie name unless you believe 100%.
I would think so too.
Or yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go to the next thing in my list here.
I don't know if you want to look at the chat
Oh, okay. I will.
so you don't get too far behind with them.
Yeah.
It is 7:30.
Yeah. I got closed pretty soon here. Matthew Carey says, didn't Doe say that all of the life forms and vegetation will be recycled? I don't know. I was thinking about that. It's funny. Just today, actually, I was thinking, would all the animals be recycled? I didn't know, and then I kind of a little later thought, well, maybe they can, start from scratch. It's probably not that hard for them to do it, because they potentially got storage of animals on who knows where, on a lab or a different planet that they could transport to the earth, to start propagating. And plants, the same thing, I think. So it's possible. I just can't remember that direct saying that all of the life forms of vegetation will be recycled. What the recycling actually is, right? We don't know what degrees the surface of the planet and underneath and the atmosphere. We know that the atmosphere is going to be cleaned, and we know that from dough and tea. And we know that the space alien souls are going to be recycled, and there's going to be a new crop of souls to take their place. And that new crop is going to be given opportunities to not go in their same direction in the future opportunities. Because the next level never assumes that once somebody goes in that direction, they'll always be in that direction until they get to the point to where they know that they're at the end of the cycle, which Tiendo felt like that was going to happen soon. Or they always thought of everything, every task as happening quickly as possible. But that to them, that didn't mean that was like a day to 1,000 years ratio. So a day for them is 1,000 years in the human kingdom. You can kind of see that the way that um, we have comparisons with animals on lifespan, even though it's not. I mean, there's some Tauruses that live for hundreds of years, right? Way beyond human years. So it's not, you can't really go by. Everybody's got their own sense of that. Um, so what I wanted to read here was a response. Somebody had a question on Reddit in that same thread, actually, um, saying, "How do we know this about the next level, and why in the world would they do this?" And someone tried to answer that by saying they wanted to, they knew they thought they were going to get picked up by a spacecraft, their souls, and that they were wanting to escape at least the way I remember it, the recycling. And so my response to that was that it had little to do with leaving before recycling. They understood. I said little to do. I didn't say it didn't have anything to do with. They understood from both T and Do that the task would have an end date. I remember T saying we had to finish up our task so the next level would be able to allow things to happen on Earth that needed to happen for the sake of the remaining souls and spirits and vehicles living after they left, to give opportunities to show to whom they are giving their allegiance, either to the human world or to the next evolutionary kingdom level above human world. They knew their methods of holding class on Earth could be jeopardized by what humans would do in the time period after they left. One example might be having people go through credit checks. I mean, that is one example, I believe. Um, going credit checks without before hiring them or leasing a property to to them. Uh, or not being able to own something like a car, I was supposed to say, without an official house address, which is happening for registrations in some states because they didn't reside in just one location. Right, talking about the class, we were moving around all the time, and we were getting jobs without any trying not to leave any trails that investigators could find us through. Even though they could go through social security numbers, but we changed often enough that we weren't in one place for more than 6 months or in that one house. And anyway, and that was pretty much that was successful enough to avoid being interfered with. That's the reason why they didn't want to be found, not because they were doing anything wrong, but because they don't want to be interfered with. Because this is a task that requires people's full dedication, 24/7. Um, uh, and Tino made it very easy for us to live during that time. They even paid for all our food and everything for the first uh, 5 years or so. We didn't work. Anyway, there are many other examples that would make holding that same class now harder than it was. And I believe more problems to come because the lower forces want to clamp down on people, like with the proposed score, the credit score, the facial recognition score, like the Chinese have in place to some degree. And, huh? I'm reading my comment and I wasn't done with it. No, I said a little bit more. My response to a question that was in Reddit on the same thread. And now I'm going to finish it. It was just one little screen full still. They knew the spading and recycling, talking about the class members, they knew the spading and recycling would take place after they left. There was a lot to say about that. They eagerly anticipated that end date from the start in 1975. Tiendo and the least, at least, now I'm not going to say that I was full consciousness enough to really anticipate the end date. I wasn't thinking about the end date. It didn't, when Tiendo would talk about it, wanting to be fast and everything, I didn't understand why they felt that way. But I believed what they were saying, and I understood that they knew what they were talking about. I just didn't know how to actually uh, um, know that that makes sense, that what they were saying was true. I didn't have examples in my life before, because I was just 25 anyway, and I didn't have a lot of different kinds of life experience. But I had some kind of life experience of somebody that was a seeker. Anyway, I'm not going to go through that. You can read about it on my blog, sawyerhg.wordpress.com, in the document called Sawyer's Story. So Tiendo and at least some in the crew hated it here, as this world is filled with an illusion of life, including deceit and manipulations we see coming through humans more and more. But it wasn't really but it wasn't really escaping. It was wanting to be with their older member. They each would have come to that reason on their own. And if they wanted to be there for any other reason, Doe would have been led to challenge their reasons, since it had to be a genuine free will, not pseudo free will, of looking for some ego trip or spiritual success. As they were against martyrdom, but at the same time knew if they did leave their vehicles behind, their soul bodies would be taken by the next level onto the spacecraft and either given some task to do with their soul bodies and or given a new physical vehicle grown by the next level lab just for them, just for each of them. It was never about the spacecraft. That would be like saying the bus one takes to their lab task was the reason for going to the lab. To them, true life was eternal for as long as they chose to be a member of the next level. They, by experience, came to know they were not those vehicles, bodies. I learned a lot about that over the years and still learn more about it day to day. I was a member for 19 years. They also were willing to leave by whatever method T gave to Doe to implement. They talk about it in the document on the heavensgate.com website called Our Position Against Suicide. Like from the start, they knew that T would could come with their spacecraft at any time and pick some or all of them up with their human vehicles. They even said they preferred to leave with their vehicles. Anyway, so that was all I had to say about that. So the only other thing that I have to go through a little bit, because I really don't have time to take any questions, is this part of audio tape 269 that addresses something that um, Mark said to Kathy in the chat. I don't like talking about this, you know. No, not in the chat. Sorry, it was in the text to Kathy that um, uh, was to me missing something, and I really want. If this was, I know you're not. Mark's not. If he's still listening to this, I know you're not asking me for help. You despise me. I'm sure. I know that was a sarcastic response. That I was a joy. Um, but uh, I would just like to see um, you have some experience that gives you help to try to um, break out of the human part of your thinking. Um, when it's been so hard, and especially coming from me, it's probably ultra hard. But uh, and I could be wrong, and maybe this isn't from Doe's mind, but you said something to the effect of to Kathy that where is it? That's not what I wrote here. Oh yeah, here it is. It's right on the top. It says so. What I've written on the document is referring to Mark Mercodi texting Kathy saying, in quotes, because we tried to get it exact, Doe had a change of heart about us. Doe had a change of heart about us. Shouldn't you? Posing it as a question, talking to Kathy at that moment. So, um, so I wanted to say a little about that. And so I don't want to say it from what I feel. I want to say what I want to talk about what Doe felt in his heart, because he talked about it. And it's in tape 269, and it's approximately starting at the 1 hour and 16 minute mark. Um, with Dan Sodi asking about using Mercodi and Serapodi in Phoenix and how they might be utilized, and it was referring to being utilized in this project that they were attempting to start a new church, not a permanent church, but a temporary church. Anyway, I'm not going to talk all about what that meant because it didn't mean the same thing that it means to most people. It's not a religion. It's a body of believers that um, were potentially going to uh, come to recognize that the difficulty with addictions, and in particular sexuality in this example, um, was because they were showered with force from the next level that the lower forces want them to get rid of by spending it, and so that they're not bad people, they're not sick by being addicted to sexuality. but that they can change, and that um, the class members that were successful with making changes were going to be, in those mind, offering their experience to people that go to those meetings. So anyway, so Doe said in response to Dan Sodi asking about utilizing Mercury and Serapodi, who were in Phoenix at the time, not in the classroom anymore, by their choice to not decide that they wanted to follow procedures. And that was criteria that was telling Doe that they don't want to be there. Okay, I just want to be clear to people that don't know this story at all. That's the perspective. They were asked to leave the group. Yes, they were actually sent out of the group, and each member that was present at the time in that Lost Angel roadcraft in Boulder Canyon, which I was one of, went up to them with instructions to say that you're free to return to the class if you agree to live by all the procedures. And the one procedure that was one of the big parts of that at that point was using the phrase "I could be wrong" before making a decision or saying something as a fact. And I'm not going to go through all that, but if you want to know more about that, I'll point you to where you can read about it. But because I don't have time to go through it now, but so here's what Doe said in response to Dan Sodi asking about this. He said, "I've thought about that, and this is in my rough words. I didn't try to get it exact. I've thought about that. They probably could at some degree. Depends where their heads are at. No, depends where their heads are. Disturbs me they are looking to each other and not to older member. And that they had some crazy quirk in their brains that they were looking to their older member. And that's not what they were doing. So the reason why he wanted Dan Sodi to get back in touch with them, which he said after this, definitely get in touch with them, was because his heart was in support of them. He didn't have a change of heart once when they decided that they wanted to leave, except for how his heart, I'm sure, ached a whole lot for them, and how he grew to how he loved them, and he still loves them, I believe. Hmm? Oh yeah, thank you, thanks. Okay, I'll be in there in a little bit. No, I'm not going to make you work. I can get up. I can get up after 6 hours of sleep. I can use that technique to try to get a full night's sleep in 6 hours. It's all right. Well, I got to finish this last part anyway. Um, so so how do we look to our older members? So I have to go through it a little bit because I'm not saying that they're not because he's saying in his comment that he had a change of heart. So even if I take it that Doe had a change of heart, he's saying that shouldn't you have a change of heart, right? Shouldn't you have a change of heart for what though? I don't think any differently about them in terms of loving them as my fellow class members. I don't want any harm to come to them. I don't want them to have any less of an experience with working for T&O than anybody else. I want them to fulfill everything that they want to fulfill in relationship to Doe. And I know they've had a hard task. I know that's been a very hard task, but I don't think it was more than they could handle because T has told us a number of times that none of us are given more than we can handle. But we have to ask for help on how to handle it, and then we have to be open to how that help might come. And in my opinion, this is easy for me to say because, but I'm more objective, I think, than they are about this. That that the way they chose to leave without telling Mark and Sarah that that's the way they were leaving, even though they knew that they were preparing for them to leave, which was a common thing to prepare for every year or so, which I could say a lot about, but I don't want to waste a whole bunch of time on that. So, so they were not necessarily knowing that they were planning to leave by their own hands. But I knew that because I was in the classroom in 1994, and they were not uh, from 1987 on. Even though Doe demonstrates that you can hear in a number of audio tapes that are coming up, which I don't care if I talk about or not, but I'd rather have people look at it themselves, not to put them down, because that's their lessons. It's history and it needs to be accurate as much as possible. All of it needs to be accurate as much as possible because it's so easy for the lower forces to twist things uh, by not being accurate. And um, yeah, all right. That's, no, I don't either. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about Mark and Sarah. I really don't. Uh, so, yeah. So you will see the evidence in the additional audio tapes clips that Doe was giving Riccoti tasks to do. And even in the same tape, 269, he talks about maybe Riccoti can, have a little place where he can be like a front person for this effort so that they don't have to, give away their security uh, uh, for where they live and things like that. Because Riccardi wanted to continue to serve. Riccardi wasn't, he left the classroom, he wasn't sent out of the classroom, but he left because he didn't want to follow procedures that he had a hard time following. Okay, and I left because I didn't want to follow procedures that I had a hard time following. Okay, it's the same thing. It's nobody's worse or better for the reasons why they left. Um, so, so it's not a judgment like that. People don't have to believe me, but it doesn't matter. I don't know how else I can, tell the truth. So, um, because we all knew that we had to follow all the procedures to stay in the classroom. He made that clear to us. It wasn't just coming from Doe's mind. There were others that were sent out of the classroom that T was uh, behind probably the most. I don't know if they were equally feeling the same way about it at the time, but I know they came to equally feel the same way about it with the 19 in 1976. And there was a number of other examples where individuals were sent to halfway situations so that they wouldn't be in the classroom if they didn't demonstrate really wanting to be there. And you couldn't demonstrate that by saying it alone. You had to be willing to enact all the procedures as best you could. And when you got lessons on that you weren't doing a good job, to change and do a better job. T and No were they they weren't strict in the way that humans are strict, but they were strict. They had a rule of the rule of iron that is talked about in Revelation 11. The rod of iron that was going to be used for the measurement is a rod of iron. It doesn't. It has a little flexibility, but it doesn't have so much flexibility that it would ever break. I mean, the analogy only works so far, but ooh, well, it's a kind of garb that they wore. I don't know if it was colorful like that. Uh huh. Oh, the '60s that's supposed to be. I was thinking it was like medieval time or something. Which that was kind of like a bringing back on some of that with the long dresses and everything, you know. Right. The baggy clothing. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I do all the time. But I want to finish, but I want to do a good job as well as I can. Maybe I have already. The best job I can do anyway. Because I'm not. So I dispute that Doe had a change of heart. That because he wanted you to do a task with Riccoti to where you would go to California, and he ran it by you both, and you decided that you didn't want to do it, and he asked you about it, and according to Doe and Riccoti, but mostly Doe, um, you wanted to do a task if he could stay in Phoenix with your current living arrangements instead of being like an office or something, or whatever else Doe might want to use you for. A living circumstance with Riccoti, for example. So Doe was interested in you continuing to serve the next level through him and T. That T helped, not that T put into motion with Doe as T's check partner. They operated as equals while they were here, even though Doe recognized that T was much older than him in experience. And there's a lot of examples of that. I'm not just saying it because Doe said it. He gives a lot of examples throughout the tapes. You'll hear examples. Um, so, um, and then he offered you a task to do in Phoenix, I believe, um, which would ended up being the 1994 task. When we were going public again, I was still in the classroom, and I knew they were communicating with you. I just wasn't on that task of communication with a number of individuals that were that were former members outside the classroom, and I could rattle off a bunch of names. Oh yeah, Jen Rhodey might still be around, who was actually Riccotti's partner when Riccoti was outside the classroom and then joined the classroom for a brief time in 1993, I believe. And I communicated with after I left. Uh, so that's another individual that I believe was a believer, and knows Mark and Sarah. Anyway, so So because you wanted to do that task of helping a segment of the class of the groups that were running around the country holding meetings that happened to be in Phoenix at that time, and maybe you were given some other tasks to be like a central for phone calls or a PO box. I don't know about that. I mean, I'm sure you were given whatever tasks Doe worked with you on to get the PO box and things that you did. I know you did a lot of things during 1994 and five and six as they prepared you for their exit. And so that's why you were on the list and were the primaries given the task of what to do with. I say primaries. I mean what to do with the materials they'd left behind. And your instruction was to go to that one storage room and to. We know because you gave your instructions to Riccoti, and Riccoti gave them to Carloti. Carloti gave them to me. And you even posted them in one of the lawsuits that you were part of in the early days in 87, 8, 9. And so anyway, so we know these are facts about what the class said to you. And um, you were told that the items of value that were in storage were to be divided among those that wanted to do the dissemination project, the dissemination of their information. And that they hoped you would work with all of the ones on the list. And the list was Flexodi and Abelodi and Oscodi and Wanodi and Wanodi was the one that you gave the tapes to, which you were fulfilling, sharing, dividing that material among those that wanted to do the dissemination task, and Wanodi was one of those individuals. So you started to do your task in that regard. But where you got off track was thinking that you couldn't give them to a number of ways you got off track with Riccoti right from the beginning. So, but also you didn't go to as a primary on the task, you would have gone to the storage unit right away. You would have had all that material from the storage unit. All right. So because that didn't happen that way by your choices, I'm not saying you didn't have a lot of pressure and it was difficulty. The lower forces were banging on your head. All those things were happening. So next level, I think, helped you um, win those materials back from San Diego. Didn't mean it had to go that way. Could have went a number of different ways, but it did go that way. And so then you tried to do the best job you could, but you were too tuned into the fact that Doe also gave you the option in those letters to handle the task the way you wanted to handle the task after he told you how to do the task, how he wanted you to do the task, which you never really got around to. And you kept on promising, but you were listening to lower forces. And we have evidence of all this through Riccoti's manuscript and other things. So uh, there's no reason not to accept that and work with us. Work with all of the ones that wanted to disseminate the information on an even keel basis. So somebody isn't having greater authority than anybody else over the information that was left behind. And we can make an organization that can even pay for the website and things. Uh, and we're going to still not do so in a way that uh, can jeopardize our security. But we're going to be asking T and O and then coming to consensus on what we think T and O are revealing to us about how to move ahead. So that's my proposal for a settlement. And preserving the information, as you've been trying to do, I think is great. But we're not trusting the next level if we're afraid of people having information. Look at this channel, 3SPM. How few people actually come to this channel. And I mean, a lot of people don't need to come to the channel because they know I'm pretty much going to say the same thing over and over again. And so they're on their own path, whatever that is. I know there's people that are working for T and O out there. I know there's a bunch. I'm not in touch with them unless they get in touch with me and they say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And occasionally somebody does. And that's the extent of it because I'm not needed to coordinate anything or be a government kind of person in regards to the information, even though some of that thought is necessary. If we did have more responsibility, like like Mark and Sarah have had, so that's all I'm going to say. And uh, if I'm wrong about the things I'm saying, I want to know about it. Um, and so I hope that T and O will help me recognize that. So with that said, I don't know if I should go back to the chat one more time, just briefly. That's right. Sharpen actor Michael Merchant. Iron also sharpens iron, so we have the iron rod of judgment because it's how we hone ourselves and each other. Yeah, I can see that. It's the next level is honing us all, I believe. And yes, we end up serving to hone each other because if we're good check partners to one another. That's the way I would translate that into T and O ways of talking. Um, Actor Michael Merchant says, "Is Mark in any of the videos like Sawyer on YouTube?" Not that I'm aware of. I don't think they've appeared on camera in ways that I've ever seen. Was the older woman who was disabled somehow, who was not living with the class, sent away because she was having trouble with the rules? I don't remember her name. You're talking about Branodian, and no, it had nothing to do with trouble with the rules. Not at all. It was part of her overcoming process to have different experiences, and it proved that the experiences that Doe gave and TN, then later Doe by himself gave to Branody helped her a lot. I watched it happen. I watched her attitude happen to where she was positive about what was happening instead of dealing with feeling like a failure because her legs weren't working anymore. That's what I'm going to say about that right now. But Carlo, he says he's gatekeeping is because he is under an influence that feeds on ego and righteousness, on Mark's ego and righteousness. Yeah, the influences feed on us. And then Carlodi said before that, since the class left, Mark doesn't like anyone who defiles him. He thinks he and Sarah are supposed to control all the class information. I hope he reconsiders that, Carloni. I want to send positive sense of that. Wow, there's been a lot of talking. I'm still here. I'm just reading the comments. All right. I can't hear you. The air conditioner's going in here. I'm going to end it in a minute. If you're, yeah, she did live in a different state sometimes, but not at the end there. Right, for a while she did. Branody. Okay, so yeah, I don't. Uh, yeah, if they don't want anybody to see their picture, then I don't want anybody to see their picture. Yes, Kathy just sent me a message. They're caught up on Kara on comments. So good night, folks.